Good afternoon. NRP soldiers. NRP soldiers. I am so close to you, but I can't hear you. NRP soldiers. Are you rolling green? Are you the mean green machine? Well, I must hear you like that. Now allow me this opportunity to bring fraternal greetings from the St. Kitts-Nevis Labour Party on behalf of our distinguished party leader, the Right Honorable Dr. Denzel Llewellyn Douglas, and the party's leadership. I also bring greetings on behalf of my own constituency, constituency number 3, West Bastia, and myself, to you, the soldiers of NRP. The relationship has certainly come from far. To me, it shows the commitment of both parties to do what is in the best interest of the country. I remember a particular calypsonian who sang a song called Finish the Song. I don't know if you know that calypsonian. And in this song he said, Konris, in your song put psychology, since Dougie, Sam, and Tim need therapy. Finish the song, Konris Maynard, finish the song. You should try to find the same remedy that make Douglas best friends with Parry. Finish the song, Konris Maynard, finish the song. So we are pleased that we have come from so far and be able to forge a strong relationship between these two sister parties. Put your hands together for that. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank the NRP leadership for extending an invitation to me to speak at your convention today. It is indeed a pleasure for me to be here. Now, I'm certainly no stranger to Nevis. I've always been treated very well by the people of Nevis. Half of my blood comes from Nevis. As a little boy, I spent many a summer right here in Nevis. I remember back then, which would have been in the mid to late 80s to early 90s, I always preferred to walk on the Nevis Pier. Why? Because the St. Kitts Pier was a wooden pier with some huge planks, with some big spaces between them, and me having to avoid my feet going through between the planks. So I always remember as a little boy, I preferred to walk on the Nevis Pier. In those days, my grandfather used to rear animals, cattle, goat, sheep. And I used to go with him in the afternoon with my uncles and so on to bring in the animals. I used to look forward to the mangoes, the guineps or the skinnips, whichever way you want to pronounce it. I still look forward to my Emery Polly every summer. I remember my grandmother used to make peppermints to sell in the drugstore in town. And I used to be right there by the pot waiting for my share. At mornings, because she lived in Ramsbury, I would walk down from Ramsbury to the drugstore. And I remember vividly passing the bakery in town. And a lady by the name of Laurette Brand Willett would always greet me well. I think she used to call me her little boyfriend. Then, of course, I would pass by the market and see Aunt Eulalie, may her soul rest in peace. And she would always have a little trinket to give me. I even went summer camps here at the Charlestown Secondary School. And so it was not hard for me to say yes to the invitation to come and speak in Nevis at this very historic NRP convention. My roots are true and firmly rooted in both St. Kitts and Nevis. Now, soldiers, when I am like you, sitting in an audience such as this, and it is time for the guest speaker, I know sometimes we say, Lord, I pray he is not going to be too long. Well, I am praying to the Lord that he hears your prayers. Soldiers, are you ready for battle? Are you sure you're ready? There is a very challenging battle ahead, and the soldiers must be fully committed if you are to win. The theme at this year's convention is moving forward together, reorganizing and rebranding. Now, this is clearly appropriate given the monumental changes that will be and have already started to take place in your party. The question is, how do I bring an encouraging message on this front? As a Calypsonian, who, by the way, has a few things in the pipeline right now, if I must say, and now as a politician and a member of parliament, I direct and have directed myself to pay attention to the constructive criticism that exists. In trying to improve my own art of calypso, I really paid attention to those who would praise my work and tell me that I was the best thing since sliced bread. To me, I could learn nothing substantial from that. I was more interested in listening to the critique, because somewhere within the criticism, justified or not, there might exist some truth from which I could learn something. And if I could then find that truth, tweak something in my art, and become better for it. Same principle in politics. In all the noise, I try to listen to the constructive criticism with a sense of humility and pre-established mindset to take the constructive criticism to try and become better. Thus, in being asked at this historic convention, or to speak at this historic convention, my remarks cannot only highlight the many achievements of this 48-year-old party, but they must also seek to bring a perspective of constructive analysis of the present state of affairs with a view to help improve the prospects of the party going into the future. Soldiers, the NRP, with its bedrock philosophy of education, self-reliance, and entrepreneurship, has much to be proud of in its 18 years of stewardship of the Nevis Island administration, and also within the cabinets of 2 federal administrations. Let me take this opportunity now to acknowledge the service of your party leader, the Honorable Joseph Parry, as the leader of this party for, I think, some 26 years. It is clear that you are dearly loved by your people because you have been there for them through it all. You, sir, will remain a giant of Nevisian politics forever. Through your leadership and the leadership of your founder, our 4th national hero, Sir Simeon Daniel, the NRP can boast of major achievements for the people of Nevis. In governance, it was the NRP that oversaw the establishment of the Nevis Island administration, where Nevis has its own government. In education, it was the NRP that introduced the Nevis Sixth Form College, the University of Miami Distance Teaching Program in education, the Miami-Dade Community College Distance Program in Business Management, the Homework Assistance Program, massive college education program, extensive skills training programs, even ensuring that teen mothers return to school. In tourism, it was the NRP that brought the Four Seasons Hotel. It was the NRP that brought the Mount Nevis Hotel. In financial services, it was the NRP that brought the Bank of Nevis, established the Nevis Offshore Financial Services. In health, the NRP developed the health services in Cuba and Panama for Nevisians. In housing, it was the NRP that established the Nevis Housing and Land Development Corporation, the Cherry Garden Housing Project. In sustainable energy, it was the NRP that established the wind farm. Now, I am certain that the soldiers here this afternoon can go on and on. At our own party conference earlier this year, our guest speaker out of Antigua and Barbuda, from the Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party, Honorable Michael Brown, implored us to talk up. What's your story? Tell your story. So soldiers, you have a story to tell, and nobody but yourselves will tell it. So you must talk up and remind the people of Nevis about your story. However, it cannot stop there. It cannot only be about what you used to do, but with a keener and more advanced electorate, you must be telling the electorate what will be their story under an NRP-led administration in the future. The NRP must begin to cement in the minds of the electorate how Nevis will look in the future if they were to place the NRP at the helm of leadership in Nevis once again. The NRP must espouse what Nevisians see for themselves and their families. So soldiers, as you begin your reorganization and your rebranding, I believe that it is important for you to remain true to yourselves and to your party. Yes, reorganize, rebrand, but remain. Do not just discard anyone. Do not discard your past, whether it included successes or failures. Reorganizing and rebranding is always necessary. The best companies, institutions, political parties, and the like go through at some point reorganization and rebranding, but the successful ones always remain recognizable for what their core philosophies are. So with all the strange and unpredictable political winds we see blowing around the world, and in particular in some of the most advanced economies, we could easily begin to ask ourselves if what we believe is the right thing to do or say is no longer the right thing. In fact, in this era of fake news and lying as the norm and not the exception, the electorate can be persuaded to believe what is wrong is right and what is right is wrong. My father likes to remind me that right does not always win. And that not because you are right means that you're going to win. When you are right on an issue, you still have to fight harder than the person who is wrong. Because if the person who is wrong fights harder than you, speaks to more people than you do, knock on more doors than you do, socialize with voters more than you, resonate with people's stories and circumstances more than you, then they will win. So not because you are right on an issue, but you lost, means that you should now indulge in wrong to win back the electorate. It means that although you have reorganized and rebranded and even repackaged yourself to bring the party up to times, you must remain true to the philosophies that make you right on the issues. Therefore, you don't need to take 2 full-time salaries for 2 half-time jobs. It cannot be morally right. Not because the law allows it, means that you should abuse it. For crying out loud, slavery was legal. Doesn't mean it was right. There are often lacunas in the law that allow greedy men to take advantage. Now, I certainly don't need a law to tell me that it is an abuse of a situation to be serving in 2 governments. At present, I receive a parliamentary salary. However, as I am on the opposition benches and I am not a minister of government, I am presently self-employed. Therefore, because at this time that my wife and I can sufficiently provide for ourselves, I use all of my parliamentary salary to help those in need in my constituency and to support organizations and groups in my constituency. So I cannot fathom for a second as a servant of the people to think it is right to take 2 full-time salaries in our present governance structure in St. Kitts-Nevis. Now, I appreciate that some will say, well, that is what the people voted for. Well, I see it this way. It just means that right did not speak louder than wrong in the situation. So soldiers, right will not automatically win. This is why we have seen evil throughout the history of the world. It is simply because evil worked harder than good. And only when the forces of good and right come together in total unison, moving forward together, will we be able to conquer evil and wrong. Thus, when we speak to the electorate, we cannot assume that they know the truth. We cannot say that we have said enough on a particular issue. We have to tell the electorate over and over again in all the media forums that exist, in their living rooms, on their verandas, in their gardens, in their backyards, on their farms, in their fishing boats, on the streets and in the alleys, what the truth is. We have to show what the truth is. And we must never relent in our quest to do what is right and truthful. So yes, reorganize, rebrand, but remain. It is also important to remain true to yourself and true to your party, because your party has to remain a tent for all of your supporters. Inevitably, there will be supporters that will prefer the older way of doing things. The party must remain recognizable to that group of supporters, and there must be a deliberate effort to keep them in the tent. You know, sometimes in losing, some are tempted to throw out everything that is old or from previous leadership. Amazingly, people even do this when they win a government. They throw out all of the people from the previous government, forgetting that the government civil service is not a partisan employer, and forgetting that a government ought to be continuous while an administration might change. You cannot just discard the institutional history that long-standing servants of the party have. They must be heard, they must be listened to, they must be included. Emphasis must also be placed on the balance of contending ideas from stalwarts and from newbies, or as some like to call them, just comes. I've always heard about the just comes. You just come. Where you going? Well, if nobody comes, you're going to die. So you must have just comes. Balance the just comes and the long-started party servants, and you will be an unstoppable force. Soldiers, the electorate as a collective group almost always makes a decision which to them is in its best interest at the time. Effectively, the electorate is always right based on the information the electorate has in front of them at the time, barring, of course, wide systematic voter fraud. Therefore, if one loses an election, it is because the message did not resonate enough with the electorate. And it is certainly not because the electorate is stupid. Another principle which I use to govern my own life is that if I have failed, it is because I did not do enough. It is not because somebody did something to me, or because someone placed a stumbling block in front of me. If they placed a stumbling block, stand on it. You would become taller. Therefore, if we switch our thinking from blaming others for our failures, we will be able to place more focus on what we need to do to overcome. So if a man decides to vote against me, it is because I was not convincing enough. If someone outdoes you in calypso competition, don't focus on if the judges cheat. Focus instead that you were not good enough to mitigate if the judges were cheating. In my opinion, when one fails to take this type of responsibility, it creates room to develop bitterness and anger towards those who you may have once been close to. By taking this approach of blaming others, it limits your creative ability to overcome the next challenge ahead. In political organizations, when candidates lose, oftentimes we seek to blame everybody else but ourselves. I contend that the candidate or party who zeroes in on why they lost in an objective way, first taking responsibility for that loss and seeking to improve upon those findings, will be much better served than an approach to exculpate oneself while castigating others for the loss. In a functioning democracy, the electorate, as I said, is generally always right based on the information that they have at the time of the poll. Therefore, we ought to be taking cues from the collective voices of the electorate. They may be saying, good message, wrong candidate. They might be saying, right candidate, wrong message. Or they may not have heard us at all at the poll. The point is that we in the party are responsible for our fate at the polls. And so I believe that you here today are listening to the electorate and have embarked on a journey to reorganize and to rebrand. Now, soldiers, this is a critical moment in the history of the NRP, and one that will decide the future of the party and the party's role in the development of Nevis, and by extension, the development of St. Kitts and Nevis for years to come. I understand that today, for the first time in 26 years, your great party will be electing a new leader. It is therefore an understatement to say that this will be a make or break moment in the history of the NRP. How the soldiers collectively respond to whatever the outcome of your elections is will define the role of the NRP in Nevis and national politics for some time to come. So this is your moment. This is your opportunity to ensure that the party you all love once again becomes the foremost choice of the electorate of Nevis. However, it will not be easy. It is people we are dealing with, not robots, who can be given orders to just fall in line. Now let's talk about the soldiers. All of the soldiers, I believe, have a common goal: to see your party rise to the realms of leadership once again in Nevis. Is that the goal of the soldiers? Now, in every organization, and especially political organizations, you will have troops. You will have smaller groups of people who form somewhat of a clan or a subgroup of the larger organization. You will have troops there, you will have troops over there, you will have troops here. Now, each of these troops will have leaders or de facto leaders. These troops and their troop leaders will have preferences as to how the party must be run, or who should be the leader, or what the leader should do or say. These differences of opinions can often be the cause of great divisions within a political party, if not properly managed. And if not properly managed, can severely hamper political progress of the party. Now, the responsibility of properly managing these differences falls squarely on the shoulders of those troop leaders. Remember, I believe, as I said, and you confirmed, that all NRP soldiers have a common goal: to make your party so strong and appealing that the electorate chooses it the next time around to run the affairs of Nevis, or to ensure that Nevis is well taken care of at the federal level. Let this be your focus first. One of the most difficult things for politicians, and in particular troop leaders, to do is to take a humility check, to swallow a humble pill. I know that the pill can be big, like it can't fit in your mouth, and you find it difficult to swallow that humble pill. Somebody is going to win, and somebody is going to lose. In situations where there is open competition for party leadership, it matters more about what happens after the vote than the vote itself. There will be wounds. There will be scars. However, if you first root yourself in the common goal and the common understanding that your eventual opponent is not among yourselves, then you can emerge stronger when you come together after settling your internal affairs. Before this coalition government that they have there took office at the federal government level, the dislike among fractions was so strong that after some of their initial meetings, I am told that some folks vomited at the idea of coming and meeting together. However, their disdain for one man allowed them to stomach that discomfort and march on. So I ask, if those misfits could come together and have a marriage of pure political convenience, then certainly NRP soldiers who have so much in common and have a common goal and common philosophies can rise like a resolute army marching on to victory. So let me say this. If you leave this exercise mortally wounded and dividing, you will fail. However, if you commit to banding together like a united, well-oiled army of NRP soldiers, you will be unstoppable. Therefore, I challenge all troop leaders and political contenders to commit to an understanding that your political enemy is not in this room. Your political foe is not in this room. Your political opponent is not in this room. And so whomever the convention chooses, you will march with them and bring your troops along. Bring your troops along. And so whichever leader you are in this party, whether you are Hensley Daniel, whether you are Patrice Nisbet, whether you are Roberta Hector, Carlisle Powell, Joseph Parry, Dr. Kelvin Daly, bring your troops along. Bring your troops along and march on to victory. Thank you very much and have a wonderful convention.